Definitely don't lose your Finnishness. Be proud of it. Consider it as a real strength and as a real true value. It separates you from the rest of the globe.
A Santi Fox production. Welcome to Finding America. I'm on a 13,000-mile road trip to meet Finnish Americans and figure out why they want to be here and learn about cultural differences. You'll meet exciting Finns and hear about their journeys in America. After a long and difficult drive with strict speeding laws, I finally made it up north to Hancock, Michigan. I was eager to get some interviews from Finlandia University, but some damn virus ruined those plans, and thus I had to readjust. Luckily, I was introduced to Pasi, who then took me in and housed me. I got to visit Suomi Cafe and eat some pannukakku. This is an area that even has streets in Finnish. Finns first arrived in Michigan's Upper Peninsula after the Civil War, when a copper mining company recruited them from mines in Norway, because of their reputation as hard workers. But in the 1930s, there were nearly 75,000 Finns and their descendants, founding towns, businesses, and living their lives. In this episode, we sit down with Pasi Lautala. He's a professor at Michigan Tech and a specialist on railroads. Oh, before we get on with the show, it would mean the world to me, and it would help me creating content like this in the future if you could subscribe, smash the like button, and maybe share this with a friend. See you next time. For someone who's never heard of you, how would you introduce yourself?
I guess I'll introduce the same way as I introduce myself often to my students. So I say that I'm Pasi Lautala, I'm originally from Finland, and I'm sometimes called as the flying Finn with 3 accordions and one-way train ticket. I'm a little bit scared to do the flying Finn because I know there's much more famous flying Finns than myself, but that's the basic introduction that I often give.
So how did you come to America originally?
I came here as an exchange student to Michigan Technological University. I was studying at the Tampere University of Technology. I only had 1 more year left before I would graduate, and I wanted to go somewhere as an exchange student, and I was asking really late at the university, so I said that I go anywhere where they teach in English, and they offered me Budapest in Hungary. I was like, you know what, that sounds great, I'll go there. But then I started chatting with the ladies, and they had a fairly prestigious scholarship actually to Michigan Tech. America was a pretty popular destination, and it was very expensive for school, so they only had 1. And they had given it to some lady student, but for some reason she just kind of dropped the ball. They suddenly, when I was walking out of the room, they said that, you know, do you have any interest to go to the US? I said, yeah, give us a week. We'll try to see if this girl is gonna go. And if not, if you can still take care of your visa, your English as a foreign language test and all the other stuff, we'll give you the spot. They called me in a week and said that you have about 2 months to figure out all these things, and if you can do them, then the spot is yours.
Oddly enough, you're working now at Michigan Tech, and that's where you went as a exchange student. Is there anyone in the faculty still working that was there when you were an exchange student?
There is some, yeah. And my so-called advisor, normally when you do master's studies, you normally have a advising professor. He just retired a couple of years ago from the university, but there's still some of the older faculty.
Would you expand on what it is you teach and what your specialty actually is?
Yeah, so I'm in our civil and environmental and geospatial, that's a brand new thing, engineering department at the university, and so my expertise field is in transportation, more specifically in rail transportation. The rail transportation in the US is very different than in Europe. It's very big on freight side, very small on passenger side.
Do you have any pet peeves in America?
I'll start with the easiest one. Stop signs. Drives me absolutely through the roof. I can't stand the fact that every freaking intersection has a stop sign. It is the most insane thing in my opinion. And what is even worse, intersections where there's 4 roads and every single road has a stop sign. So in Finland, you only have stop signs in let's say Tampere, my home city. It's a fairly sizable city. I know maybe a half a dozen stop signs, and they are only in the places where it really is a dangerous intersection. So that's definitely the number one, no doubt about that. I'll give you another one. two actually. They're both related to pricing and costs. One is at the grocery stores.
Oh my God.
Just for heaven's sake, tell me what does it cost? Don't tell me that it's 177 plus 6.5% tax. I mean, just tell me what it costs. The second thing, which is even worse, is healthcare costs. Okay, I'm going to a doctor. And now they decide that, okay, you have something in your toe, we gotta take a little sample of it or something. Oh, okay, that's great. And 2 weeks later, I get the bill for $800 in the mail. I'm like, what the? Did they chop off my whole toe? Oh no, they just took a little piece and I don't know what they did, send it to Mars and back or something, but not only the cost is the one thing about the healthcare, it's insane. I mean, I spent a year in Finland a few years ago. I didn't even have an insurance that paid everything. I did my elbow surgery there. I did as many MRIs as I could because the cost of MRI is probably 20% compared to here.
Yeah, and just to make clear for all the non-Finns watching, when you don't live in Finland for, I think, over 9 months, we lose all of our rights.
That's right.
And when we return, we actually don't get those rights back immediately. I think that might have actually changed this year. I think during the pandemic, they might have changed that. I heard a rumor. Is there a simple way of explaining why you love staying here?
Why do I love staying here? I don't know if I love staying here.
Or why do you stay here?
Well, yeah.
Because you could go back. You could take the entire family and go back. So.
And I mean, and until about 10 years ago, it would have been very easy since I didn't have family, I didn't have kids. Now it would be obviously much more of a family decision. But so why haven't I? I mean, I've thought about it. It's been once or twice, it's been pretty close that I didn't go back. I just feel that I've always had some reason to stay. There's been either some kind of basic opportunity or something that has been interesting enough. And there has never been anything that would have either pissed me off so badly about America that I just really wanted to get out, or something that would have got so attractive about either Finland or some other country that I just absolutely wanted to get in. So you could say that, well, maybe I just got accustomed to it and grew into it, but do I love America? No.
How do you spend your free time?
I try to spend as much of it as I can with my boys, because I have 9 and 7-year-old boys, and they still love doing stuff with me, and I know it won't last. They are awesome, and I absolutely love doing things with them, including going to play golf. I almost rather go to play golf with my boys than I go with some of my buddies. I own an old house. I build a big garage. I have always something to finish or to build on or to do in the yard. So I do quite a bit of stuff, and it really, you know, being in academic world as your profession, you don't really see the results of your work on a daily basis, especially research work. I mean, you may never see them or you may see them 5 years away. Anything that I can do with my hands where the result is immediate. Honestly, I love doing dishes to a certain degree. But because I see the result immediately. But I love building things because I see the result immediately. I do like sports, so I try to play hockey as much as I have time. I like golf. Boys have really got into soccer now, so we do a lot of soccer. Try to get to mountain biking. I've done some triathlons. And then I have my little musical endeavors. So I play some accordion and a little bit of guitar, and we have a little Finnish humppa band called Pasi here, which is very atypical for this region.
How would you define success?
By far, most people who know me, they would probably say that, wow, you've been so successful. You've done so many things, you know, interesting things, even beyond my profession. I mean, I think I've been quite successful in my profession, but I've done actings and musics and travelings and all these different things, and I have a great place, and financially we are really good. But I always keep questioning that. I mean, does this really make any sense, what I've been doing? That's why I'm saying that I don't know if I'm the good person to define the success, because I've never quite figured it out on my own. But I will say this, I mean, they always say that if you're happy with yourself, then you're successful. And there's probably some truth to that. Yeah. But I think there's a lot of people like me who are never happy with themselves. there's always something going, and I'm still trying to learn and find out how can I be more happy with myself, because I know my logical mind knows that I've been successful. I have awesome kids. I have okay job. I like my job. I like certain things. I hate certain things. I've had a good life, and I do think that most important is probably the family. That's kind of cliche, but if you're not really happy with your kids and with your wife, I mean, how can you be happy with anything really after that?
Well, do you consider yourself lucky?
Yeah, in some ways, but I mean, just like they say with the good sports teams, the good ones always tend to be also lucky ones in some ways. So I think it's a combination of if you do work hard and you do work and you make smart decisions. I mean, I've never made important decisions lightly. I've definitely always pondered big decisions in multiple directions. I've made some decisions that a lot of people were like, "Are you crazy?" Like leaving a really good consulting job to go back and becoming a poor student again and start doctorate. I mean, I had a lot of people who were shaking their heads. But I thought about it a long time, and I was pretty in peace when I finally made the decision. Yeah. So there's certainly been some lucky things, and I start listing them. Like our rail program, part of that became successful was lucky. It was right timing, and that had nothing to do with me. It just happened. But then at the same time, I mean, I think again, you gotta create the circumstances yourself that allow the lucky bounces that you can then, in some ways reap the benefits. I think that's kind of a weird way to explain it, but...
So then how do you define failure?
I do have some level of perfectionism in me. It's definitely a characteristic that I would love to get rid of. So the perfectionist in me sees failure as anything that is not perfect.
Let's talk about Finnishness. Do you think there's anything that makes Finnish people unique?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I do think one of the things, it's almost a cliche too, but the directness of Finns, I think it is unique in good or bad. And I think it is good and bad in some ways. I've had some friends of mine who moved to Finland, Americans, and obviously I moved here, so we've talked with each other. And one of the things that I've talked often to people is the culture shock. I always felt that you come to America, your culture shock is very, very, the first year it doesn't even exist. Mm-mm. It's like a fluff. You're just floating in this nice fluff. And then little by little it just kind of like dropping like these little hammers.
The DMV.
Yeah. All over, everything.
Yeah.
Then I talked to my friend who moved to Finland. And in Finland, I believe this is based on him with maybe my adjustment. Yeah. The culture shock is like, fatam. You step out of the airport and it's right there. Nobody will change their behavior a bit. Whether you're a foreigner, whoever you are, they're gonna behave exactly the way you want. And it is striking. And I understand that now. And definitely the lack of small talk, although I hate when people make a stereotype that all Finns, nobody does small talk. Because we have a lot of people who are fantastic at small talk, and they love it.
What does it mean to be Finnish to you specifically?
Honor. I hate to say that, but I would not want to be any other than Finn. I mean, I'm proud of it. There's different ways probably how you can play the Finnishness if you're in America. I've always tried to be, hey, Finn, direct. I've tried to be very direct. I've tried to make it very clear that I'm a Finn. I mean, not trying to make it sound like, hey, I'm a superior, I'm a Finn. But I think it gives you certain freedoms that Americans, for example, wouldn't have. Like it gives you some freedoms to how you talk to your clients. Because if you make it clear that, hey, I'm a Finn, this is the only way I know how to talk. You can actually be critical to your clients that I find, like, let's say some younger engineers or younger American people, if they did the same thing, they would be in quite a bit of trouble. But if you're Finn and you announce it out loud, that this is how we converse, you can do it. And in some ways you can build your credibility if you're gonna actually say some smart criticism, because you don't have to hide behind this politeness.
How do you keep Finnish traditions going on in your family? And I gotta say, your kids speak great Finnish. We had a good football session here earlier, soccer for the one country in the world that says that. And then, you know, I've hung out with your family now for a day, and their Finnish is very good. And so is their English too. And so obviously you're teaching them Finnish.
Well, first of all, I mean, yeah, I think they are important. I do think we try to keep them going in as many ways as possible. And yeah, I think it's important because like I said, I'm proud to be Finn. I mean, I think there's a lot of things from the Finnish traditions, in my opinion, that I think are much more righteous than maybe some of the American traditions. The language is a big deal because, I mean, we haven't necessarily settled. I've lived half of my life in US, but we spent a year in Finland. My family loved it, my wife loved it, my kids loved it. I actually had probably the hardest time to be there just because I think a lot of old package came to the forefront. You know, I do want them to be as prepared as possible if we end up moving there, or if they want to go there once they become old enough that they can make their own decisions. So I want it to be easy for them. I like a lot of Finnish stuff. I love sauna.
Thanks for the sauna today.
Yeah,
that was great.
It's a no-brainer. My only regret is that should have been the first thing I ever built in the house when I bought it. I love a lot of Finnish food. I'm not necessarily a fan of all the American food. I love ethnic food. And especially I love what I consider Finnish healthy food, like black licorice, salted black licorice, porridge, Karelian pies, those kind of things. To me, I want to keep those going just because I think they're good for you.
Do you have any examples on where Finland has popped up in popular media or in conversation with a random fact where you thought it was bizarre but funny?
There definitely are. I don't know if I can come up with one off the top of my head, but I've noticed the same thing. And I do think, you know, we live in the times, and let's be very philosophical. It seems like we live in times that the only way to get the news is that it has to be something either weird or something a little bit spectacular. I mean, just the regular news doesn't cut it. There has to be some itty bitty of either scandal or just something, and especially in the America. Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And I just think that it's become this kind of weird land that through all these different circumstances or different events, whether it's a Conan O'Brien making his show about the Finland or looking like the female Finnish president, or whether it's some of us sports stars who may not either be able to speak English or they speak so funnily that it becomes really hilarious. Yeah. Or whatever, but I think Finland has kind of just become this kind of like a pop country. Yeah. In this US. So, and when you become a pop, you're gonna start popping up. The Finland has kind of passed that mark that it's become interesting. Whether it's school system, I mean a lot on the school system. Yeah. I know these Americans are war nuts. We don't know, I bet you don't know either, we don't know much about Finland's wars, do we? We know the basics. We were in the First World War, we were in the Second World War, and there's some wars way before that. Well, I came to the US, I had all these people who start telling the details of the First Finnish World War and the Second Finnish World War, all these different details of how the Finnish soldiers went behind the Russians and all these things, and I'm just looking at them like, oh, I never heard about that, or I mean, I don't really know about that. I think that's another thing that Americans have always been very curious about, or very amazed about the miracle of Finland in the Second World War, how we kept the Russia away and all those things.
So we're gonna do a word association play, and whatever comes to mind first, be it a word or a sentence, feel free to say that. First word, blue.
Water.
White.
Snow.
Sauna.
Relaxation.
Sisu.
Perseverance.
Black.
Night.
Green.
Grass.
Coca-Cola.
Too sweet.
The Matrix.
Too advanced for me.
Finland.
Home.
Love.
Most important.
What do you have to say to the next generation of Finnish people?
Definitely don't lose your Finnishness. Be proud of it. Consider it as a real strength and as a real true value. It separates you from the rest of the globe.